Imagine standing at a counter holding two bottles. Same perfume, same brand, same name on the front. Same bottle shape, same color of liquid, as far as you can tell. One says Eau de Toilette. The other says Eau de Parfum. Different price too, by quite a margin. It would be completely reasonable to wonder, is one of these fake, or has somebody made a mistake? Neither is fake, and nobody's made a mistake. But if nobody's ever explained the system to you, two bottles that look almost identical but cost differently and behave differently is genuinely strange. Welcome to the Scent Room with Sufian. By the end of today, you're going to understand exactly what those letters on the label actually mean, why the same perfume can come in 3 or 4 different versions, and this is the part that'll actually save you money, whether the more expensive version is even the right choice for you personally. It usually isn't the automatic upgrade people assume it is. Before we get into it, a quick note. What we're covering today is general fragrance industry knowledge, how the wider market labels and prices perfume. My own background is in concentrated perfume oils and full parfum strength spray specifically. But understanding the whole landscape genuinely helps you shop smarter everywhere, not just with me. Let's get into it. Here's a question I'm asked constantly. Does EDP mean extra strength? It doesn't. It stands for Eau de Parfum. But I understand the instinct behind guesses like that, because nobody ever actually explains what these letters mean. So people quietly invent their own answers and just carry on. So let's actually clear this up properly once and for all. Every one of these names refers to concentration, specifically the percentage of actual fragrance oil dissolved in alcohol. More oil generally means a stronger, longer-lasting scent. Less oil means something lighter, fresher, and usually cheaper. At the very top sits parfum, sometimes labeled extrait de parfum, meaning extract of perfume. This typically contains somewhere between 20 and 30% oil, occasionally more. It's the most concentrated version you can buy, the most expensive, and usually the longest lasting on skin, often 8 hours or more, sometimes closing in on a full day. Just below that is Eau de Parfum, the one most people reach for by default. Usually somewhere around 12 to 18% oil. This is the industry's sweet spot, genuinely strong enough to last a proper working day, without the price of a full extrait. Below that, Eau de Toilette, typically 5 to 12%. Lighter, fresher, usually your most affordable option, and often the format brands use for their everyday wear it daily releases. And right at the bottom, Eau de Cologne, often as low as 2 to 4%. Historically, the lightest format of all. Originally designed to be splashed on generously rather than dabbed sparingly. While we're on the words themselves, let's clear up toilette. Because I know exactly what some of you are thinking. And no, it has nothing to do with a bathroom fixture. It comes from the French word toile, meaning cloth. Originally, the cloth laid out during washing and dressing. Over time, faire sa toilette came to mean the entire ritual of getting ready, washing, dressing, grooming, the whole morning routine. Eau de Toilette simply means grooming water. First written down in English around 1907. So next time someone giggles at the name, you've got the actual answer ready. Let me put these 4 side by side so the difference actually feels real, not just numerical. Reach for cologne, and you're dressing for something brief, quick errand, a hot afternoon, something you'll refresh later without a second thought. Reach for toilette, and you're dressing for an ordinary day, present but not demanding attention. Reach for parfum, the Eau de Parfum tier specifically, and you're dressing for a full working day, meetings and all. Something that should still be quietly there when you leave the office. And reach for the extrait, the full parfum, and you're dressing for a moment you actually want remembered. Because it will be, by the people standing near you. Now here's something worth knowing, and it might surprise you. None of these numbers are actually regulated by law. There's no international body enforcing exactly what Eau de Parfum has to contain. These are industry conventions, widely respected, generally consistent, but not legally binding the way, say, food labeling percentages are. A house could technically call something Eau de Parfum at 16% or 20%, and both would be considered fair use of the term. So think of these labels as strong guidelines, not strict legal guarantees. Where did this whole tiered system actually start, though? You have to go all the way back to 1907, to a city in Germany. An Italian perfumer named Johann Maria Farina had settled in Cologne a few years earlier. And in 1907, he created something genuinely new. He combined citrus oils, bergamot, especially with pure alcohol, in a way nobody had really done before. He named it, fittingly, after his accepted home city, Eau de Cologne. It became so wildly popular across European courts that cologne eventually became the generic word people used for men's fragrance in general, which is honestly a remarkable piece of branding for something created over 300 years ago. And Farina's own house is still operating today in the very same building, still in the same family's hands, the oldest fragrance house in the world. Here's the slightly bittersweet part of that story. Actually, Eau de Cologne became so enormously popular across so many decades that the name itself eventually slipped out of Farina's control entirely. Other perfumers in the same city began producing their own citrus alcohol blends and calling them Eau de Cologne too. And there was no trademark law robust enough at the time to stop them. Within a century, the word had become completely generic, the name of an entire category, rather than one man's specific creation. The tiered system we use now, Cologne, Toilette, Parfum, Extrait, grew out of that original idea over the following 2 centuries. As perfumers realized, customers wanted options. Something light for daytime, something richer for evening, something concentrated enough to save for special occasions. What started as one man's citrus creation in a small German workshop eventually became the entire pricing and formatting structure most of the industry still uses, more or less unchanged today. There's a practical reason brands lean on the system too, beyond just tradition. Offering the same fragrance across 2 or 3 concentrations lets a house catch a customer at more than one price point, more than one moment in their life. Maybe someone tries the Eau de Toilette first, because it's more affordable, falls in love with it, and a year later treats themselves to the Eau de Parfum for something special. From the brand side, that's smart business. From your side, it just means it's worth knowing you're not necessarily locked into the first version you happen to pick up. There's a myth worth killing here too. While we're at it, a lot of people assume the more concentrated version must also be purer, made from better, more natural ingredients than the lighter versions. That's not really how it works. Concentration is simply a ratio. How much of the same fragrance oil is dissolved in the base? It's not automatically a different, superior formula underneath. Sometimes houses do tweak the blend slightly between tiers, softening or intensifying certain notes for the format. But more expensive tier doesn't inherently mean smuggled in better raw materials. You're mostly paying for concentration, longevity, and yes, often a nicer bottle to go with it. Now, does more concentrated always mean better for you, specifically? Genuinely no. And this is where I'd ask you to remember something from a couple of episodes back. How a fragrance performs on you depends enormously on your own skin, not just the percentage on the label. An Eau de Toilette can genuinely outlast an extrait on the right skin, and an extrait can fade faster than expected on someone else's. Concentration shifts the odds in a particular direction. It doesn't guarantee the outcome. Suppose someone feels they need to upgrade to a more concentrated version of their everyday scent, purely because it's the more expensive bottle, and they assume that automatically means better. Testing both properly, side by side, on two separate patches of skin over a couple of hours often tells a more interesting story. On some people's skin, the lighter concentration performs beautifully for a full working day, exactly the presence they wanted, while the heavier ones feels almost too intense for the office, better suited to an evening out than a Tuesday morning meeting. This exact scenario plays out often enough that it's genuinely worth testing before assuming more expensive means more right for you. So here's how to actually choose practically. Ask yourself what the fragrance needs to survive. An 8-hour office day probably wants an Eau de Parfum. A quick errand or hot climate might perfectly be served by an Eau de Toilette, especially since lighter concentrations tend to feel less overwhelming in the heat. A special evening, a wedding, somewhere you genuinely want to leave a lasting impression as you walk away. That's where Parfum earns its price tag. And don't assume the most expensive bottle in the family is automatically the best version of that perfume. Sometimes it's simply the most intense version, and intense isn't always what a moment calls for. Climate matters here too, more than people expect. In genuine heat, a heavier concentration can turn overwhelming fast because warmth amplifies projection, something we've touched on before, and something we'll come back to properly later in the season. If you live somewhere hot, or you're traveling somewhere hot, leaning toward a lighter concentration isn't settling for less. It's often simply the smarter technical choice for the climate you're actually in. If you're ever unsure which concentration is right for you before committing to a full bottle, this is exactly the situation decants exist for. Small, affordable samples of each tier, so you can genuinely compare how two concentrations of the same fragrance behave on your own skin, without spending full price twice just to find out. We'll go deeper into smart buying like that later in the series, but it's worth keeping in your back pocket from today. One more practical note before we wrap up. Not every brand actually prints these terms clearly, especially in niche perfumery. Some houses only ever sell one concentration and simply don't bother labeling it at all. Since there's nothing to distinguish it from, others use only the French phrasing, no English translation anywhere on the box, which can look intimidating if you don't already know what you're reading. If you're ever unsure, it's a completely fair question to ask a member of staff directly. What concentration is this? And any shop worth spending your money in should be able to answer you plainly. So back to that pair of identical looking bottles from the start of the episode. Neither one is fake. They're simply two different translations of the same idea, built for two different days. Next time you're standing in front of a shelf with the same name in three different bottles, you'll know exactly what you're actually choosing between and exactly what you're paying extra for. Not a better perfume, not a purer one, just more of it, staying with you for longer, at whatever level actually suits the day you're dressing for. If you've got a question, leave it in the comments. I genuinely read every single one, and your question might become the next episode. Until next time, stay unforgettable.